Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As you guys can see, we are in the shop today, and as you can see behind me, the Corvette engine bay is 100% done. We got the intake back on, we got the throttle body, everything's been plugged in. Can't do any of the coolant bleeding until we get the car running. So today's video is more about getting the PCM flash and everything good to go there. And yeah, so we've got the battery hooked up. You can actually see the battery charger, that's all been connected. Actually, it's not running right now because I have the fans turned off because of the noise, but yeah, so I actually just spent the last 30 minutes hooking up HP tuners on my new laptop. And so yeah, with the MPVI3 setup, it's very simple. All I had to do was go to their website. They give you a quick how-to guide, a quick documentation of how to set it up. So go to their website, you download the software, you update the MPVI3, you get that updated. Then you go set up an account with HP tuners, you buy some credits, then you flash that back to your device, and now that gives you 2 credits. At least this car takes 2. I think the new ZR1 or the 2019 ZR1 takes like 10 or 15 or something like. That's why those cars are like $2,000 to flash, because you've got all those credits to buy. So, but yeah, so you know, this car only takes 2 credits, and yeah, so it's pretty simple in terms of flashing and all that. And I already have my base tune loaded from PCM in North Carolina. They sent that to me like a few weeks ago. We finally finished this thing up, and we're finally ready to go ahead and flash that. So the only thing I haven't set up is the inputs for the fuel pressure regulator, as well as the O2 sensor, which we got a wideband on here. I'll worry about that stuff later. I just want to get the base tune loaded. So just for safety reasons, I think what we're going to do today is actually load the tune with the car on a lift, turn the car on electronically, see if we've got any leaks from the fuel system like that, flash the tune, then when we're done, I'll put the wheels back on, back the car out of the garage, and then try to start it up outside. This car has been apart, the engine's been out of it, and honestly guys, I don't want to burn down my house. So if something happens to the car, it'll be outside, away from the shop, away from everything else. Alright guys, so we are writing to the PCM, and you guys can see the screen's kind of going haywire, but yeah, that's what they do. So I'm just writing. I did not do a full write. I just did the calibration write. And it says it's completed, so let's close it. And let's turn the car off. Okay. So I'm sure there's gonna be some check engine lights that we're gonna have to clear in here, but basically for this write process, all I did was I did have to sync the VCM editor to the VCM, even though I already did it with the scanner. You know, like I'd already done it through this menu. I went to help, and then there's resync interface. I did that with this menu, but for some reason the other application did not sync it at the same time. So for this one, I had to go in here, resync interface, and then it finally registered that there was 2 credits available. I had to select those 2 credits, and then that gave me the right option. So when you're done with your file, like my file's already done, so I didn't have to, there's no calibration or anything, but basically all I did was go to flash, go to write vehicle, and right here is write calibration. I didn't do the entire, I just did the calibration like I said. Select that, select write, and you should be good to go. So in a very short time we have the new calibration installed. Obviously guys, I'm not a tuner. I did get this from my tuner. We're just loading it for him basically. And now what I need to go do is go check the fuel lines, everything, because when I started the car up I did hear some wheezing a little bit, so it sounded like there's a leak. So I'm gonna go tighten all that down. Alright guys, I did find one fuel line on top was loose. It's actually the connection over there. I'm not sure if you guys can see that, but it's the one right below the MAP sensor. And I tightened up the one hose, good to go, cleaned it up. Well, not that I really needed to clean it up, but dried it off a little bit. And yeah, we should be good to go. And as you guys can see, we're getting the wheels mounted. Did want to show you a new tool that I picked up. Milwaukee has these armor sleeve lug nut kit. Basically, this is a 3-pack, so it's 17, 19, and 21. I actually bought a 24 millimeter because the SS and the Zeta chassis car take, I think it's 21 or 24, something like that. It's a bigger size, so I ended up buying the 3-pack, and then I bought that extra socket for that. So basically all it is a, I don't want to call it a Delrin material, but basically it's just it's got a sleeve on the socket to help protect your wheel. Obviously in this case we have an adapter because we got locking lug nuts, but you know, just something to keep your wheels safe. All right guys, for the first time in a long time, the car is on the ground and we're actually outside, so you can tell it's been a while. But yeah, I've got the door open, I've got my fire extinguisher. So yeah, let's just go ahead and send it. I do want to say one thing. I did refill the power steering reservoir, did check it, it was bone dry, so refilled that. We might have to do that a couple times, but got the door open. If this thing goes up, we're out of here. So let's pray that it doesn't, but you never know. So let's go ahead and try pressing the starter button. Well, that sounded more like a starter issue than the motor. Let's go get a wrench, make sure the motor's still turning over, and try this again. All right guys, as you can see, the Corvette is back on the lift yet again. And basically what I found was the starter, the teeth were locked into the flywheel. I've pushed that back manually with a screwdriver. I did loosen up the starter, and I tried to shim it a little bit better than it was. I mean, there's not much movement there. Like, there's kind of some slop in the alignment, but you know, once you tighten it down, it kind of only goes to one spot. So when I did knock that starter tooth back, I was able to turn the motor over just pressing on the flywheel. I was able to get it to move a couple degrees. So the motor's not locked up, it's just a starter. Basically, if this doesn't work, I'm going to take the aftermarket starter. It's a Power Master starter. I'm going to have to do some research to see if there's some alignment issues. We may just put the stock starter back in. I have it over there on the toolbox. So let's try this again. Nope. Let's just try it one more time. No. Yeah, like I said, there's something screwed up with that starter, which sucks because, you know, when I was diagnosing the blown motor in the first place, we replaced it. So yeah, I think either way, we're dropping the header and pulling that starter out. There's no way to get the inner, is it the inner or outer? It's actually the most outer bolt out without the header being in the way. Now, if you've got stock exhaust, you might be able to get that out, but literally the 3.5-inch collector is sitting right there, so there's no way you're getting that out. So let me do some research and we'll pick this up in a few. All right guys, here's one thing I've discovered. I have discovered that the engine will turn over. Take a jumper wire and you put it in the slot, this will crank over. And the good thing is, if you look up front, the motor is turning over, the alternator, everything's good to go. So thankfully the bottom of the motor's not locked up again, but you know, supercharger, everything's good to go. Now what my concern is, that high-pitched whine, you're not hearing it engage or disengage. So I think what might be happening is the starter, you know, that arbor, the teeth, whatever you want to call that, I think that is stuck out. It's not retracting, because normally you hear go like click, 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 you know, it usually makes noise. This is just simply spinning. So I kind of have a theory that when we were trying to spin the motor over previously, and then when I had the wiring touching the body in a previous video, you know, we tried to melt down the car because the wires were touching. I think something might have happened internally to that starter. I don't know if it's short-circuited, I don't know if it's jammed open. Like, I think something has physically gone wrong. So what I'm going to do is take the coil packs off the spark plugs, the spark plug wires, take that all out, take the header out, and then I'm going to actually remove the starter and swap it in for the stock one. I still have the stock one over here in the corner, and you know, I'm going to try swapping the stock starter back in. Alright guys, I got the starter out, we got the header out obviously. You guys can see that the teeth are fully engaged, they're not retracting. So I think the starter might be fried. I tried jumping it off of, you know, just the way we jumped it earlier, and this didn't move at all. So I think that this starter is locked up. You can see down there, I do have the stock starter back installed. All the wires are hooked up, and yeah, So we're ready to go ahead and try to trip it with the relay and see if this works. Alright guys, we're gonna trip the relay with the jumper wire. You guys could hear that disengaged clanking. That's what we weren't hearing with the other starter. That clicking, that definitely was not happening with the old starter. And as you guys can see, the motor is still turning over without issue. So I'm 98% sure if I put the header back on, put the spark plugs, everything else back in, I think this car would fire up. Unfortunately, it's 10 o'clock at night and I don't want to piss off the neighbors already more than I have. So as always, I have gone 2 steps backwards and 1 step forward. And what I mean by that is, as you guys can see, the water pump, the alternator, actually the alternator's over there, and the brackets for all of that, that is off of the car because I stripped out a bolt on the water pump. And that bolt is actually the passenger side idler pulley. I ripped out about 1/3 of the threads, and I probably could send it and just put some Loctite on it, but honestly guys, I'm not really comfortable with that. So I have a new water pump coming. Oh, FYI guys, if you do have a ZR1, the stock GM pumps are been discontinued. I called 2 different shops, actually some performance shops too, and no one has them in stock, so just FYI. So I had to get a Gates water pump. And yeah, so that should be here tomorrow. But to prepare for us to be ready for that, I'm gonna put the alternator bracket back on because it's either the bracket or the tensioner. One of those goes on behind the water pump, so I wanna make sure that's ready. And as you guys can see in my hand, I've got another fuel line. I kind of mentioned this earlier that we were waiting for a fuel line. This is from Brown & Miller Racecraft Solutions again. And yeah, so this is a -10 fitting, and this is the other fuel line that we're going to replace. This is the feed line that goes from the tank over to the fuel pump. So here is the new fuel line from Brown & Miller. It's the bottom line. Actually, the top line is too. That's that return line we put in earlier. And as you guys can see, it just comes out the bottom of the ECS fuel block, does an S-bend, then goes right into the little fuel filter and then into the Holley pumps there on the driver's side rail. So yeah, that's pretty much it. This actually fits way better than the one that came from A&A, and it's like 1/3 of the weight, and it bends a lot better. So overall, that piece is much better than this piece right here. And like I said, the adapter started leaking, so I don't know what it is. Maybe just after time, these adapters like to leak, but so far so good with the Brown & Miller hoses for the fuel system. All right guys, here's the Gates water pump part number. It's 45014WT. Here is the new water pump from Gates. Here is the GM water pump. Everything looks like it's about the same, if not the same castings. And also you'll notice that I actually put the OEM inlet or outlet, you know, that little neck piece, because actually this piece in here in the mix chamber was actually bigger. It had a bigger diameter than this little piece. Like, that opening is actually smaller than what's on the inside of that. So, I mean, I don't know if it's gonna make a difference, but you know, you don't want any restrictions in your cooling system. So yeah, let's go ahead and try to start the car. Well, I heard a pop. We got torque hooked up. Well, it was hooked up. All right, well, I can't get torque to hook up, but I'm gonna go ahead and pursue what I think is the problem. I think what the problem might be is the cam position sensor. This is a black sensor. The sensor that's in the motor right now is tan colored, and I thought I read somewhere that the sensors were indeed the same, but I'm kind of thinking that they're not. So, all right guys, we got the tan cam position sensor swapped for the black one. The black one was stock to the car. This is what came with the replacement cover. Like I said, I thought I read these were the same, but apparently maybe not. So let's go ahead and try to fire up the car. Well, that's good. Alright, I tried the old, let's put the key in the slot thing. I don't know, let's just try this one more time. Alright guys, you can see that we have HP tuners connected. I have connected to the car. So I'm going to see what DTCs there are. There's a diagnostics tool. Alright, read DTCs. Alright, wheel speed sensor, CAN bus, wow, that's not helpful. Yeah, these are all history, and this all makes sense because I had different things disconnected. Front wheel speed sensor, brake pedal. Let's clear the DTCs. Let's try reading it again. Yeah, the AC, I think that's still unplugged. That's fine. So let's go ahead and try starting it. Car's in neutral. It's trying. Alright, well, let me reread DTCs. Wow, nothing. Just the refrigerator, the AC pressure sensor, which, like I said, that's unplugged. Alright, let's try kicking it on again. I want to add a oil pressure gauge. Let's try that, and we'll try this again. Alright guys, so we've added a bunch of channels here. I'm sure some of them aren't going to work, but crank request, starter relay power, alcohol percent, because we do have an E85 sensor on the car, a flex fuel sensor. Pretty much everything else was just control module. That was something I thought, well, you know, maybe we got a bad module somewhere. You know, maybe something's not seeing it. So, oh, and the other thing was engine oil pressure. We added that. So, you know, we're trying to trying to get as much diagnostics as we can with oil pressure, you know, your cranking relay, the crank request, all that stuff. So that should be good to go. I'm going to start recording it. So start scanning it. Turn the car on. Oh, I just saw the alcohol percentage shoot up. Let's try this again. And let's just make sure we're getting engine oil pressure. I did see 20 plus PSI of oil pressure. You know, the one other thing I want to look at, the crank request. I may have narrowed down two issues. I would expect to see a engine code for the one, and that is, if you guys look, the crank request, that is still set to no. I have not seen that turn on or turn to yes at all during these logging sessions. I'm going to go double check the other log as well. But that second log file that we just recorded never turned on to yes. So yeah, that might be one of a couple things. It could be a bad ignition switch. It could be a bad crank position sensor. You know, that was out of the car. It was on the old motor. I don't think it would be the crank position sensor. It could be. I'm just not sure. And the other thing I wanted to show was I do have 12 8.8 psi of oil pressure, so that's good. Again, that's just cranking, and I don't know what the RPM is at because obviously the motor's not fully connected. But the other thing I wanted to show you, we're not getting any error messages with the controller reset or controller 5 volt reference 1 fail. You know, so I think the ECM is having no issue because we were able to plug in with HB tuners with no issue. I'm gonna have to look up that crank request and see if that is an issue. And the other thing I wanted to show you, I almost forgot. Guys, look at the voltage right there. The control module was only at 10 volts. There's another down here, control module voltage 10.2 volts. I'm pretty sure that 10 volts isn't high enough for the engine to crank over. So I think we're gonna do two things. One, look up that crank request no and see if that is something that ever changes. And two, I think I'm gonna go get a new battery, or at least get this one tested, because I did buy that Walmart. I do have the receipt, and I didn't buy it that long ago, so hopefully I can go ahead and get that exchanged out. But that is actually gonna be the end of this video, because guys, I think last time I edited, we're going on 3 weeks for this video, and I don't have a video for you guys. So we're gonna end this here because, like I said, this might drag on for another couple more weeks, and I need to get a video out for you guys. So let's just go ahead and end it here. And if we get it fired up, you know, soon, we'll obviously create another video, go from there. But, you know, basically that video will be kind of diagnosing what we did to help resolve our no start issue. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button. And if you guys want to be notified about that latest video, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on your bell notifications. If you guys want to help support the channel, check out the links down below. And also make sure you check out our website, BonecrrusherSS.com. Any contribution you guys make there, go right back in the channel, these projects, and hopefully get this Corvette fired up in the next video. So thanks guys. Have a great one.